Hello, welcome to it once again. This is The Sheet. It's Friday. That means a couple of things. One, Brian Burke joins us every Friday. And two, it's Friday, so that means trades, right? Every Friday is trade deadline day, right? That's the way it works in the NHL, right? Whether it's, Rantanen, Natchez, whether it's, Miller, Hedel, Marcus Pettersson. That's the way it works now. Every Friday we get a big trade. That's the deal, right? Because trade deadline itself is essentially just become tweak deadline. Trade deadline is every Friday in the NHL, right? I just sent a manager a note before the show saying it's Friday. Who gets traded? Nothing has come back yet. That something just came in. LOL. Is someone? Okay, very good. Play Japanese goldfish on me there. Koi. Welcome to the program. Jeff Marek alongside the one and only Zach Phillips. Zach, let's see how deep the Louis Vuittons are under your eyes after your late show last night. While I was all tucked away sleeping, you were grinding it out on After Dark last night. How did it go? What time did you get into the your Maple Leafs wrapper?
I put on my Leafs PJs around 3:15 a.m. Eastern time.
Bless you.
Yeah,
I cannot tell you the last time I saw 3:15 a.m. Good Lord.
I thought, it's not that bad. It'll be a late one. People won't show up. We'll do like 30 minutes in and out. Mm-hmm. Higher viewership than anticipated. Nice. Raised a bunch of money for sick kids, so we kept it going. But yeah, late one. I felt like I got hit by a bus when I woke up this morning. I was like,
you recover
maybe
quick.
An extra half hour.
Child, you recover fast. How you like my morning cup of hockey look, by the way, with the hat, the hoodie?
I like it.
No collars anywhere. Or am I doing my impression of you on most days?
That's what I was going to say. You show up, like, you ever look around and you're like, wow, I went from, like, TV and collared shirts and suit jackets, and now I got to virtually sit beside this idiot with a mullet and baseball caps.
Dude, trust me, I'm more comfortable here. This is much more of a comfortable way to do. Well, one day we'll get into the whole difference between doing work at the old shop and doing work here, but this is way more comfy. It's a way more comfy place to work. And, I don't know how forward you want to be here with the audience that's watching on YouTube. But before the show, you shared me your very, I don't even know how to describe them, the pants that you were wearing. Let's have a look at those beauties. Oh, look at those. Look at those pants on those getaway sticks of yours. Look at it. I'm Zach. I'm standing on a chicken. Look at these two things.
Come on.
Good Lord, man. Do a squat. Would it kill you? Do a lunge. Something. Put something on those.
There was no need to take shots at the leg construction.
Friday.
Man.
Who cares, man? It's Friday. We're having a good time. It doesn't matter. A few things I want to get into today with you here. And what I love about the daily outlines is these are all the things that Zach wants me to talk about.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get to all of them. Sometimes we get to none of them. Usually one or two of them we normally hit on. Daily Outlines, presented as always by FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook app provider. Yes, a little bit more on Connor Bedard. Wanted to touch on it yesterday, ran out of time. Shocker. Because
that
Bedard
never
essentially,
happens.
I know, never happens, right? Because I'm so good at hitting my times. It's one of the things you have to adjust to in television fast. Hearing your producer counting backwards from 30 in your ear as you're trying to wrap 29, 28, 27. So Connor Bedard, we'll talk a little bit more about that situation, which continues. And you know what? I'm sure Brian Burke, who's going to join me here in a little while, is going to have a comment or a thought on that. All the time I'm thinking here, if it's Brian Burke who's running the Chicago Blackhawks and Bedard gets a little bit diced up on TNT in the intermission, mentioned yesterday, and we showed it how Henrik Lundqvist had probably the best comment out of anybody on the program yesterday. If Brian Burke were running the Blackhawks, I think the phrase that he uses, do you want me to dust the flies off? I think Brian probably would have got out in front of it and caused a stir, to take attention away from Connor Bedard. You know, one of the great quotes that Brian had, and we'll get into it with him, is with the Sedins. Like, I think the line was something along the lines of, Sedin is not Swedish for punch me and headlock me in a scrum. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, another great quote from Burkie. And all of a sudden, no one's talking about incidents anymore or sharpening the pencil and paying more attention to certain things. I mentioned it's Friday, so that means trades, right? Like, that's what we're promised, NHL. 32 general managers. You've chummed the waters 2 weeks in a row. Now live up to it for a third week in a row. We'll talk about trade rumors going on around the NHL. Don't look now, but like the Islanders are really good. I know they've been really good for a little stretch here, and like the whole right side of the blue line is new, and Ilya Sorokin is turning into the ghost of Terry Sawchuk meets Bernie Parent, meets Dominic Hasek, meets Patrick Waugh, who's now his coach. He's been fantastic for the Islanders. So we'll get into him. And also we'll talk about Sidney Crosby, not available for service tonight for the Pittsburgh Penguins as they face off against the New York Rangers this evening. What does that mean for the Penguins? What does that mean for Team Canada, Four Nations, etc., etc., etc.? A couple of things that I wanted to mention here before we get to Brian. Peter Mansbridge was on Leafs Morning Take. Now, Peter and I sort of I didn't overlap really, but I mean, when I used to work at CBC, I would see Peter all the time. So I did Heather Hiscock's morning show for a while there, a year, maybe 2 years, doing morning sports. And throughout the day, you know, Peter would be in his office and we would sort of cross paths. And it was always, like, honestly, Zach, like, I don't get starstruck at all. Like, honestly, you put anyone in front of me and it's like, okay, ho-hum, big deal. I remember the first time that Peter Mansbridge, because he would do this every now and then, Jeff, come into my office. He would sort of like summon you. And I remember the first time, I'm like, Peter, I'm like, is he talking to me? Peter Mansbridge, for those who don't know, former chief correspondent for CBC News, longtime anchor for The National, the definitive news voice in Canada, and a humongous hockey fan. And I remember the first time that Mansbridge sort of summoned me to his office. And the first thing that I noticed when I walked in was there was this massive framed picture, I believe it was autographed too, of Joe Thornton, who he was and still is great friends with. And he went on about a story about Joe Thornton. And he would just, like, every now and then, he would just call me into his office just to talk about hockey. And I always wondered, it's like, if you're Peter Mansbridge, you have, like, all day long, it's like preparing for the national, heavy news story, you know, write your copy, pre-tape interviews, all of it to get ready to present news to the country. And I always wondered, like, at the end of it, he just kind of wants to be like a sports dude and talk about what's wrong with the Leafs power play and are the Habs really this good? So he used to always get, like, the biggest kick. And we sort of formed, like, a sort of friendship out of it. Like, I'll still get texts from Peter all the time, every now and then, about hockey. And it's like, it's the biggest thrill in the world. And I never miss an episode of his podcast. I listen to his podcast every single day. The Bridge, the Monday episodes with Janice Stein have become must listen to. Those are some of the most anticipated podcasts I listen to every week. And then Good Talk on Fridays with Rob Russo, who's filling in now, along with Chantal Hébert, who is absolutely fantastic. But all the rest of the podcasts throughout the week are great too. So Mansbridge's podcast, The Bridge, is much listened to. And now, after this show goes off the air, I'm going to listen to Leafs Morning Take, or watch Leafs Morning Take, to see what Mansbridge had to say. What did the former chief correspondent from CBC News have to say this morning, Zach Phillips?
I didn't really get to check it out here yet, but I know that they
were you
were
awake,
digging into
Zach?
it. Yeah, I was. I got up. I got up. I just started the day late here today, Jeff.
Yeah, I understand.
I honestly, like, every day this week and for the last couple of weeks, I've been getting up and going to the gym first thing, and then
what's his name? Jim? How's Jim doing?
I watch Morning Cup of Hockey while I'm in the gym, and today I got up and was like, I will do this one later. Like, this is a needed rest. But it's been a little bit of a slower morning that is here today. I'm gonna go and do the exact same thing though. To be completely honest with you, watch Leafs Morning Take from today after as well.
Jeff Nichols. Hey, Jeff, Heather Hiscox is from my hometown, Owen Sound. That is true. She now lives in London and is a humongous London Knights fan. I think her and her husband might even have season tickets for the London Knights. Anyhow, So check that one out. Also, I do want to mention Mike Gillis, former Vancouver Canucks general manager, on Sekeres and Price today. So Mike, who remember one of the big things about Gillis back in Vancouver too were the sleep studies, right? One of the first managers to really take that seriously and rest and recuperation. Anyway, very much looking forward to hearing Mike Gillis on Sekeres and Price, and Peter Mansbridge on Leafs Morning Take. Alexander Ovechkin is 16 away from Gretzky now.
I know.
Did you watch any of that game? Did you watch any of that game last night? And by the way, you knew when it was a 1-goal game that Ovechkin was coming out for the empty net. And did you see the gaffe that almost led to the game-tying goal? Because like everyone's trying to get the puck to Ovechkin to get him like, okay, 16 away, net's empty. Let's just feed the puck to Ovechkin, get him like 15. And it almost cost him. Like Tyson Forster almost scored with like a second left in the game. I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, watching Ovi. Here we go. He's going to get another one. And then like turns it over at the blue line. And you're like, I get that you want to get this guy the record here, but like this is kind of a go for it season for the Washington Capitals. Got a thought on Ovi and the Caps last night?
I cannot. I need that top corner box on every broadcast that I'm watching so that I can follow it no matter where it is. But this is going to be one of those things that's going to be really fun. And you know what, actually, like, and I'm kind of curious your thoughts on it, but FanDuel posted a market for this. And I was looking at it the other day. I bet it. Okay. Just for clarification, I bet it. It was plus 1,100. Method of Ovechkin's goal to break the record. Would he score it on an empty net? And I said yes, plus 1,100. Obviously, I don't think he wants to. Yeah, I took it. But my thought process is like, I don't think he wants to, but you saw it last night, Jeff. They're doing everything they can to get this guy the puck in any position, and he's not going to pass it up. Because the other thing is, you know what's going to happen? He's going to score more goals after. This is not the only goal that he's going to score.
Yeah, but you know what? This is going to be like the confetti celebration. Right?
I know.
This is going to be like of course he's going to score more goals after he breaks the record, but still, like this is going to be the one.
I know.
And this is going to be the one for all history. I will tell you, there's only one, okay, because I wonder about it too. There's only one type of person that wants him to score the record-breaking goal on an empty net, and you know who that is?
Who?
Every single goalie in the NHL.
Yeah,
so they're not on that highlight for the rest of their lives.
Yes. Okay.
Look, Grandpa, that's you. Yeah. Move along. Is that you? Let it go 5 foot. Yeah. It was deflected.
Yeah. Hit the defender's pants, doesn't count. It's not my fault. What was I supposed to do?
What happens if he scores and they do the big celebration and then after the game they go back and realize that it was deflected? And it was like Dylan Strome tipped it. Would the NHL do it?
I think they have to.
You have to
because of it.
Do the big celebration.
And that's one of those ones where you kind of got to like
Wayne with the handshake, the whole deal, and then after the game, the email from the NHL. Washington's third goal awarded to Dylan Strome. Michael, congratulations.
Yeah.
Would they do it?
That would suck. That would be the worst case scenario for the NHL. The goal that wasn't.
Yes. The record-breaking goal that wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like I think we all want the same thing for Ovechkin. You want to see Ovechkin blow a puck past a goaltender. And you want him to do it from the spot. You want him to do it from the offense, the OV goal, and all of that. I'd be curious. Ovechkin's on. Okay, empty net. Okay, here's your scenario. Empty net. 2-on-1. Ovechkin has the puck. And hang on. And he passes it to you. Do you shoot it in or do you force a pass back to Ovechkin?
See, the thing is, I feel like at least you probably know ahead of time what he's looking for. Yeah. But panic in the moment. panic, Jeff. I'm getting that puck, and I might miss the net. I'm like, I don't know what he wants me to do with this thing, and then it's just like double clutching, triple.
Because at that, you know why? You have to shoot it. You know why? Because that is Ovechkin saying, I'm not getting the record like this. But then all the fans are going crazy for it, and how much of a letdown is it if he doesn't take the shot?
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Hey, here's also quickly, as Brian's ready, and I'm sure he's got some thoughts on this as well.
Okay.
But just one final thing from me before I let you go and talk to Burkie. The chat pointing out, what if it gets challenged?
Called back goalie interference. How'd you like to be the guy that went offside? Oh, how'd you like to be the guy that goes offside?
Yeah.
I like the way you think, son. I like the way you think. Let's bring aboard Brian Burke. Fridays are owned by Burkie, right here on the sheet on Daily Faceoff, and he joins me once again now. Burkie, how are you today, sir?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
Do you care when Ovechkin breaks a record how he scores it? If it's an empty netter, it's an empty netter. Do you care at all?
No, like you're just saying earlier, I'd rather it was a clean goal, not an empty netter. But that's still in the record book. It still counts. I just want to. I bought tickets to the last game, or next to last game of the season. Boston is hosting Washington. I bought tickets in case he breaks it that night.
I think we're all wondering what the day is going to be, and everyone from the people from the Hall of Fame are going to be there. Grab the stick, grab the gloves, grab whatever you can. Have you ever been? I'm guessing the answer is yes. I'm kind of putting you on the spot on this one. Have you been in the rink for any type of major record breaking?
Well, I was on the Gordie Howe watch when Mr. Howe had his record broken by Wayne. We were in San Jose the night before, then we were in LA, and we were chasing Wayne, obviously.
Yeah.
But I was on the watch, and Gary Bettman said to me, "This is history. We have to watch this closely. He did his whole schedule over to chase around Wayne Gretzky and see when he could break this record. I was there. It was really cool. So, yeah, I'd like to be there. I'm a big fan of Ovi's, as you know.
Yep.
And if he's going to break that record and I can be there, I'm going to be there.
What did you? I'm curious because you were there when it happened. What did you think of Ovechkin when he first joined the NHL? Because he was like brash and the tinted visor and the low-hanging hockey pants or breezers if you're from Minnesota, and the string around the waist dangling, like the tongues. That I don't know how long the tongues of his skates were, but man, they were out almost to his toes. Like he had like a really cool look. Like what did you make of Ovechkin when he first joined the league?
I didn't like him. When he did remember when Don Cherry roasted him for doing the stick, eating up the stick?
You know where that came from?
Scored a goal?
I talked about this the other day. So that actually comes from Terry Ryan. When he played at Tri-City, what Terry would do is he would mock the other, and Terry was tough too. You could back it up. Terry would score a goal and he would do that hot stick celebration, or he would go in front of the visitors bench and bust out like 10 push-ups in front of them. Like he would like really try to taunt and showboard towards the other team. And Terry ended up getting drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, was at camp with Jose Theodore, who he showed it to. Theodore with the Washington Capitals, whispering into Ovechkin's ear, hey, when you break a record or score a 50, maybe try this hot stick celebration that Terry Ryan back in Tri-City used to do. That's where that whole thing came of. And I understand like what Ovechkin was thinking, but it was not well received at all. Like not even one bit well received.
I didn't like it. Iron Curtain issues, the whole thing. It's Sid versus Ovi, and Dion hit Ovi and hurt him, I think, in that World Junior.
He did, yeah.
I don't think anyone liked him. We were all picking sides back then.
Yeah.
But then you get to meet Ovi, and I told my story about Ovi and Brendan.
Yep.
After Brendan's death, he was the first guy I saw in Cologne at the World Championships. I hadn't seen him in Vancouver. I'd seen all the other players, but hadn't seen him. He called me over and put his arm around me and said, I'm so sorry about Brendan. And it was his 15th anniversary yesterday. So I told Jeff not to bring it up, but here I'm bringing it up.
That's understandable.
But I love Ovi. If he has a chance, I don't think he'll break the record this year. Personally, I think it's going to be next year. I hope I'm wrong.
You know what, though?
I bought tickets to that game. If he's going to break the record, I'm going to be there and hug him.
You know what? In some ways, Brian, I kind of don't want him to break the record this year because that way you have a whole summer to hype it up. And there's almost like an instant momentum, like you know what's going to happen if he's like 2 or 3 goals away. And then, like, listen, Zach had this idea we talked about on the show yesterday. No matter if Ovechkin is playing, because this is a national story. This isn't just a Washington story. This is an NHL story.
It's a worldwide story.
And it's a worldwide story too, absolutely. So if you're like Calgary facing off against Vancouver, every time Ovechkin's on the ice and in position to score a goal, maybe up in the corner of the screen, the league can mandate sort of OV watch. And up in the corner of the screen, you have a little highlights or like a camera that's following Alex Ovechkin around as he's poised to break the record. And when it happens, it happens. But that way you can be watching any game that night when he breaks the record and still see Ovechkin break it. What do you think?
I like that idea, except it shows great potential for betting capabilities that I don't like. But yeah, I think it'd be great. I'd like as many people to see it as possible. This is a real champion. He's been a great player. He's a great guy. Mm-hmm. His celebrations after they won the cup. It reminded me when Teemu won the cup. Teemu played 14 years, I want to say, without a cup. I think Kobe was about the same. And I felt the parallels were so similar. These great players who never got a sniff. And Teemu chased the cup. But Kobe just stayed there. And to see those two players have their day in court, if you will, to watch Obi lead those celebrations, he's epic. This guy's unreal.
Let me ask? Okay, so you got us a Teemu here. Let me ask you a Solani question. Did you ever get a chance to meet the 14 drunks that were following him around on your Stanley Cup ride?
Yep.
What was the deal?
They were drunk.
Yeah, every game, every night.
We went back for our 10-year reunion after we won the cup.
Yeah.
And 30 of these drunk Finns showed up.
Yeah.
Greatest bunch of guys and women you'll ever meet in your life.
Yeah.
I said to Teemu, these guys, they were drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning. And our first event was at 3. I said to Teemu, these guys, they know how to drink. He said, Burkie, Finns have a black belt in partying. That's Teemu's quote. So, yeah, I met those guys. They're all wonderful. When they could stand up, they were great.
Those were it was a wonderful sort of sidebar to your Anaheim Ducks in 2007 chasing the
they had to buy all their own tickets too. Wherever they went, they had to buy the tickets. Teemu only you don't get free tickets on the road. So Teemu will get them a couple from the travel guy, but they had to buy their own tickets. That little tour of theirs cost them a fortune.
Yeah. But it's memories that last a lifetime, right? Like if you're a sports fan, like
great
that's
bunch
that's
of
great.
guys.
You know, I'll tell you, there's one thing that I always remember, and I remember saying to myself, like, oh man, Anaheim has them. And it was game 1, and I remember I was racing back. I was playing, had like a softball game, and I was racing back from the park to get home so I could watch game 1. And so I'm listening to the first period NHL radio, the broadcast, and Billy Jaffe was doing rinkside. And there was a face-off sort of right in front of Jaffe. And he had the microphone right in between Brad May and Chris Neal. And all you could hear was Mayday saying, anytime, big boy. Anytime, big boy. Today, tomorrow, anytime, big boy. You just let me know. I'm going to be right here anytime you want it. And I said to myself, Anaheim is getting in Ottawa's face right away.
Well, we had 5 guys who would fight on that team. We had our principal fighter was George Peros. He was our heavyweight. We had Sean O'Donnell. We had Francois Beauchemin, who could both fight really well. Bosch was a sneaky lefty. And we had Sean Thornton and Brad May. So guess what?
Yeah.
You get through the first guy. If you're willing to fight George Peros, then you got to deal with the second guy. That's Sean O'Donnell or Sean Thornton. And you got the third guy. Guess what? We had it was a tough team, and it was a good team.
Yeah.
It was a fun team too. Great team to be around. But yeah, I believe that. And Chris Neal is no slouch. He's not afraid of anyone either. But he was alone. He's the only guy that would fight. We had 5 guys lined up.
Yeah. It's funny too. After you won the cup too, all of a sudden everybody else wanted nuclear deterrence on their bench. It's funny how that happened.
It's a copycat league. What the hell that happens is right.
It's funny. Carolina wins. Everybody, oh, foot speed. Your Ducks win. Okay, we need some muscle on here. It's hilarious the way it ends up playing out. You mentioned George Peros a second ago, Burkie, and he was in the center of it this week with the Ryan Hartman situation with Tim Stützle, and it's rare that we see a double-digit suspension. Now, it is being appealed, but nonetheless, did you have a thought on the Ryan Hartman play on Tim Stützle and the subsequent 10-game suspension?
Yeah, I don't like it. I didn't like it at the time. George Peros is a dear friend of mine. My son works in player safety. I have never criticized anything that they said or did publicly. This one reeks to me of the suspension of Tom Wilson with the Rangers. You can't do what I call a positional or foundational statement suspension on a player unless the act warrants it. So if you give a guy 20 games out of the blue, because you're sick of, I get it. George is sick of seeing Ryan Hartman come in. He's sick of dealing with suspensions. People say throw the book at him. But if you're going to throw the book at him, I always felt you're going to make a positional, take a position with a suspension and make a statement. The act has to warrant the suspension, which I didn't think it did with Tom Wilson. I didn't think it did with Ryan Hartman either. He loses a face-off. I know he was mad. He buries the guy on the ice. He gets, 8 stitches, 10 stitches? That's a shaving cut. It's not a serious injury, not a serious breach of etiquette, not a serious breach of the rules. It was worth it. Maybe I thought 8 games would have done it. I thought 10 was high. And I never say it. And my rule, Jeff. If I think it's off by 1 game, I don't say a word. If I think it should have been 4 and they gave him 5, I don't say a word. If it was 5, they gave him 4, I don't say a word. But off by 2, off by more than that, I'm going to speak up.
I mean, a lot of this, you already mentioned this a second ago, and I think the mitigating factor in all of this, and if you look at the script that they read out during the suspension video itself, this guy's been called on the carpet how many different times for suspensions and fines. I think that's the mitigating. To me, that's it. Like, if it's just a one-off, like if it's anybody else doing that at that moment, you're probably looking at a couple of games. But the mitigating factor is once it's established it is a suspension, then you start looking at history and repeat, etc. And
right, I agree with all that. That got me to 8. You look at the guy 5-time suspension or 4-time. And George is sick of seeing him come through the door. And I get that. I used to get sick of guys I saw more than once. I'd be like, you're clearly not getting the message, so I'm going to amp up the punishment.
Yeah.
But I think if you make a reputational suspension, it's got to be for an action that carries more weight. It's more objectionable, more clearly where you go, I don't like that. It didn't fall into that category for me. So I never criticized player safety. I think they got this one wrong.
There's just as a quick aside, in the chat, there's a lot of confusion or questions over Edina, Minnesota. Were you west or east Edina, Minnesota?
Edina is a great town. I grew up in Edina. I moved there when I was 12. I started playing hockey when I was 13. I only played 1 year high school hockey, Jeff.
Okay.
So like all these people say to me, you have a hockey card from when you played Pee Wee? I never played Pee Wee hockey. So no, I don't. My first year hockey was Bantam. My second year hockey was Bantam. My third year was Pee Wee or a midget. My fourth year was midget. My fifth year was high school. I played 1 year of high school hockey at Edina West. I was a Cougar, not a Hornet.
Another question in the chat. Actually, you know what? Before we get there, I want to make sure I park some time with this with you. I was making this point off the top of the show that I wonder what the week would have been like for the Chicago Blackhawks if you were the manager. So this was a week where on TNT, Connor Bedard kind of got diced up in one of the intermissions. Like Henrik Lundqvist, I thought, brought up the most salient point, which is you're late in the season's gone. Essentially, you're playing empty calorie games. You can understand where some bad habits, some selfish play will sneak into someone's game. I thought that was a really good perspective by Lundqvist. But at the end of it, this is Connor Bedard getting chewed up nationally. Second-year player, Calder Trophy winner last year. And remember thinking to myself this week, if that were Burkie, and I think the phrase that you like to use is, do you want me to swat the flies off or shoo the flies or whatever it is? If you were the GM of Chicago, would you have gotten out there publicly to defend Bedard to take some of the heat off of him?
You need some stature to do that. I'm not sure the GM there has the power or authority now. He's an interim guy. The coach is interim. They're all waiting to see what happens at the end of the year. I'm not sure you want to use ammunition unless you have a firm place to stand, which I always did. My own reputation was good. I had the backing of my team. I would have ripped their faces off. I didn't see the interview. I heard about it afterwards. I would have ripped their faces off. Absolutely.
What do you make of Bedard's play this year? Like, it's been a tough year for the Blackhawks. Coaching change was, listen, I think Luke Richardson's a wonderful coach and a wonderful guy too, but coaching change happens. A lot of the signings in the offseason haven't really worked out. Chicago finds themselves in the same place that they were at last season. What do you make of Bedard through all of this? This is tough for a rookie to drag through.
It's a second-year pro, right?
Yeah.
Not a rookie.
Oh, sorry. Second-year pro.
Second-year pro. How many second-year pros have we let get dragged through the mud because they had an off year and the team didn't respond? How many times does that have to happen? How many times do you have to watch this movie and realize the heroine doesn't ride off with the good-looking girl on the white horse? It doesn't always end happily. It's not a formula for success all the time. Sometimes player has an off year, the team struggles, and this guy falls back in the standings a little bit. Does anyone doubt this player? Because I don't. I think Connor Bedard's going to be a great player in our league. He's failing because the team is failing. Coaching changed because the team is failing. They've got a lot of stuff wrong there. They have to fix this. It's not Connor Bedard's fault. I think it's a shame that people are jumping on him. I really do.
Had a kind of a chuckle yesterday on the show with Daniel Briere, GM of the Philadelphia Flyers. And we talked about, I showed him the video of you last week talking about the Dion Phaneuf trade and how the deal was done on Friday, had to consult with management on Saturday. Everybody held their breath. All 7 players were in action on Saturday night, and the deal went down on Sunday. And, he was in a situation there where, he had guys, he's like, the deal was sort of done right before the game on the Thursday, but they didn't have enough players, so Frost had to go in and Farabee had to go in, and Frost ended up coming out with a injury/illness. Farabee stayed in, and Tortorella's got him blocking shots in the third period, and everybody's holding their breath. I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch that game. I never really asked you about it on the Friday. But did that harken back to your Dion Phaneuf deal?
The Dion Phaneuf deal, that conversation lasted about 15 seconds because Daryl Sutter is the guy you can trust absolutely. If Daryl Sutter said to me, right now I'm looking outside, it's nice and sunny. If Daryl Sutter said to me, grab an umbrella, it's going to rain in 10 minutes, I'd grab an umbrella. I trust him completely. He said, I'll do this sight unseen. You run the rest of your guys. We had 4 players in the deal. He had 3. He said, you run the deal sight unseen. I will bear the risk for my guys. You bear the risk for you guys. We did the deal anyway.
On Morning Cup of Hockey this week, yesterday, Mike Rugioni was on. I've always wanted, I don't think I've ever asked you about the Miracle on Ice and that team, either the players or Herb Brooks or the Phenomenon and all the young American players that victory spawned. But Mike Rugioni was on yesterday, and he's a fantastic interview, charming guy, all of it. What were your memories of 1980 and the Miracle on Ice? All of it, the Olympics, Lake Placid, anything jump to mind right away for you, Burkie?
Yeah, well, Mike Rugioni was a left wing at Boston University. I was a right wing at Providence College. We played home and home every year. I played against Mike Rugioni twice a year for 4 years. And he won Defensive Player of the Year all 4 years. He was a great two-way player, a great checker, great scorer, and a great guy. But he used to drive me nuts because he liked to talk. I never talked unless I was going to fight. I didn't like talking to guys unless I was going to fight. Unless I played with him somewhere. Yeah. He would say, we line up for a face-off. He's opposite me. I'm right wing, he's left wing. We say, hey, how's it going, Burkie? He has that Boston accent. Burkie, how's it going, Burkie? I wouldn't say anything. He'd go, oh, you're going to be like that. You're not going to talk to me. Finally, in the third period, I'd have enough. I'd say, hey, Riz, blank off. And he'd say, see, you talked to me, I got you, I won. So he drove me nuts. He was a guy that was a good college player.
Yeah.
He stayed amateur for 2 years. So he graduated with me. Everyone think of the time frame here. 1977, he graduated with me. He stayed amateur and played in the East Coast League or in Dayton, I think it was. Stayed amateur so he could play in the Olympics. He was the captain of Herb Brooks. Herb Brooks was a great man, a great coach, a great guy. He picked Riz to run that team, be the GM of that, or the captain of that team, and Riz responded with a gold medal. Great guy, great story. I asked him to come to a women's game.
Yeah.
One of the PWHL games. He said, I can't come that day because I'm in Florida with my family. Otherwise, I'd be there. He'll support anything. He's a wonderful guy.
A tremendous interview with great stories as well. Are there any players from that team? I mean, listen, Jim Craig became a national hero. The photograph with the flag, etc. I mean, all of it is just sort of burned into everybody's hockey memory. Some of the best hockey photographs that we've ever seen. Any other players that you think of outside of Mike Aruggioni when your brain goes to 1980? I mean, Herb Brooks, obviously, but any other players?
Oh, yeah. Craig Patrick was the GM of that team. Craig Patrick's a wonderful human being and a great executive. But I played against, I think, 13 of those guys or 14 of those guys, even though 1980 was 3 years after I graduated. Played against Jim Craig. Played against Jack O'Callahan. Played against Silky. Played against all those guys. Hughes. So I played against 13 or 14 of those players. I didn't play against Broughton. I played against 13 or 14 of those players. Respected them all, but I didn't think they had a snowball's chance. And Herb Brooks turned them into a team. That movie, and Kurt Russell, I've met Kurt Russell once. I don't know him well. Kurt Russell was Herb Brooks. He adopted Herb Brooks' demeanor, mannerisms, everything. He was Herb Brooks for that movie. And Herb Brooks was a great guy.
Yeah, well, I am curious because one of the things that because Aruggioni was asked on Morning Cup of Hockey yesterday, did Kurt Russell, did he nail the character? And he said Russell was actually nicer than Herb Brooks actually was. Like, he was an intense guy. Like anytime anyone gives a fiery speech to players, like, oh yeah, he got the Herb Brooks speech last night, or the team got the Herb Brooks speech last night. I think that happened with San Jose last week after the Seattle game. But what was Herb Brooks like as a person?
He was competitive as hell. He used to, the term Herbies, like players from Minnesota will say breezers. They also talk about Herbies, which is Herbie is a blue line back, red line back, blue line back, goal line back. That's a Herbie. So Herbie used to tell the guys we're doing 10 Herbies. Yeah. So that's a term. How many players launch a term that survived for 50 years still? People still talk about doing Herbies. Yeah. So the goal, we always used to play in the same summer league in Minnesota. So the players from Colorado College, Dartmouth, Michigan State, they all come back to Minnesota and play in the summer league. Herb Brooks Mr. Carlson put the teams together. Herb used to pack the summer league team. He'd get like 8 gophers on the team. Joe Micheletti be on that team, the Fippen boys.
Oh, yeah.
He packed the team. Tommy Manelli. So we beat them one year. They won every year. They won 3 out of my 4 years. So we beat them one year. And Herb Brooks came over to me after the game. And he said, Burkie, the biggest mistake I ever made was letting you go to college out of state. I was like, Herb, you hated Gopher. Hey, you hated Edina guys. You never even spoke to me. He said, I said, besides, who packs the summer league? Who packs the summer league? Who does that? Who stacks the team to try to win a summer league? And Herb Brooks put his arm around me and goes, always take the edge, Burkie. Always take the edge.
That's awesome. That's awesome. A couple of questions from the chat here for you. From J-Rock, ask Burkie, if you were a player in this is interesting. Okay, Burkie, if you were a player in today's NHL, what would you want your role to be? What kind of player would you like to be in today's game?
I think the type of player that I respect and like is coming back in our game. I thought Florida brought it back. I think Boston's brought it back. I think a couple teams now, like Minnesota, has brought it back in a big way. Billy Garrett's teams, but like my teams, maybe not at heavyweight, but the way they hit and fight. I think fighting's coming back and it's getting respectable again. And people, I want people to understand, Jeff, you've heard me say this. I'm not a dinosaur. I don't want to go back to when we played in the American League, 3-hour games, fight after fight. I don't want to go back to that day. I love the way the game is now, but there's an absence of hitting. Like you see the big hit the other night on in Vegas. Petrangelo got drilled, but a clean hit. Great hit.
Yeah, Will Cooley.
They're showing the highlight for weeks and weeks and weeks. That type of hit used to occur on a nightly basis in the NHL. We've got to get back to put more hitting back in. We've got to put more fighting back in, but not a lot. I'm not talking about changing things drastically, but the days of the game is too boring, too finesse, not enough hitting. The game, there are too many games. There's no low event hockey. Yeah. And I'd say it doesn't need much to get better. It's the greatest game in the world, but the game is played the old school way, not often enough for me.
The interesting thing about that, actually, you know what? I want to get your thoughts on this one. It was a hot button issue this week, and it led into a game against Columbus where we saw a fight off the draw. The lack of response from the Buffalo Sabres after Stefan Noesen hit Tage Thompson. It was 4 guys doing statue practice. There were some A's out there as well. I know that Stefan Noesen's tough. I get it. But, you mentioned Florida a second ago, and the point that I was trying to make this week was, it doesn't matter who's on the ice. If that happens in any shift against the Florida Panthers, everybody attacks. If that happens against the Tampa Bay Lightning, it doesn't matter who's on the ice, everybody attacks. It's that pack mentality. We saw that with Flyers, Bruins in the 70s, but those two teams have it. Buffalo was the opposite. They all stood
okay. You got to balance two interests. So I don't like clean hit fights. Like the fact that Will Cooley had to fight that night on a clean hit, I don't like that either. If it's a star player, though, see, Tage Thompson's a star player. See, when I played in the American League, 2 players got that kind of support. Your goalie, someone runs a goalie, whoever's closest is going to fight him, and your star player. After that, if I got hit late or hit clean, someone would say to me, keep your head up, rookie, keep your head up. So I don't like clean hit fights as a rule. But that one there on Tage Thompson, someone's got to answer the bell. I thought the response was belated. I thought it was unenthusiastic. I thought it was kind of forced, shamed into it, where someone should have. And there's nothing worse. You know this, Jeff. There's nothing worse than fighting a guy that you think might kick your ass. Because I've done it. I had to fight Paul Homer in the summer league. He challenged our whole bench. I had to jump over the boards and fight him. It didn't go well. I didn't like the fact I had to fight him, but I had to fight him. It was the right thing to do.
You know what it reminded me of? I'm not sure if you're going to remember this one. So after Milan, this is going back years, after Milan Lucic hit Ryan Miller, and I always point out, ever since then, the Buffalo Sabres haven't made the playoffs. That was such a huge moment for the Buffalo Sabres, and there was no reaction. And then maybe it was the next game or the game after that, and it was a good on him, good on Paul Gostad. Good on Paul Gostad for trying to, but very reluctantly kind of went in there. And Burke, you know what I'm saying. He was like, I'm out of my weight class. I'm not going to do well here, but someone's got to do something, and I'm the only one here.
It's not whether they win or lose that fight. It's the fact that you would stand up for a teammate. It's all about standing up for a teammate. It's not about whether no one's ever going to say, okay, so you look at that fight. Who'd they fight in Columbus and Buffalo?
Olivier and Gilbert, yeah.
Okay, so
no, but you know what? So
Gilbert's a tough kid. Olivier won that fight, in my view.
Olivier might be the toughest player in the NHL. See,
he might be. But Dennis Gilbert did the right thing. He did the right thing. Doesn't matter. No one's ever going to say, well, he got his ass kicked. They're going to say he did the right thing.
Yeah.
It's honorable.
I'm glad he got us there, Brian, because I found that moment so interesting, because a lot of people looked at it and said, well, that doesn't mean anything. Stefan Noesen's playing with New Jersey. Why are you fighting Columbus? And then I thought, okay, so Dean Evason's coaching Columbus. The visiting team fills out the lineup card first. Dean Evason knows that the Buffalo Sabres have had 2 days of being questioned about their toughness and standing up for their players. And he puts Olivier in the starting lineup as if to say, okay, Lindy, what are you going to do? Challenging their toughness right away. I don't think Lindy had any other choice but to put Gilbert in and say, look, they're dressing Olivier. That's a challenge. We got to do this.
So my favorite fight story was Brad May had to fight Boogie.
Oh, yeah.
Derek Bugard.
I remember that. That was after the Kim Janssen incident. That was after he
after
hit Kim
Kim-
Janssen from behind.
After the Kim Janssen hit.
Yeah.
Had to fight him. I remember thinking, I went to Mayday. I said, look, you don't have to take this fight. He said, yes, I do. I said, no, you don't. We have someone else fight him. He said, no, I have to take that fight.
Yeah.
I said, well, get in close. Don't get hit hard. Just stay in close with him. And he said, Burkie, I'm going to win this fight. The late, great Derek Bugard was as tough as they come. Mayday won that fight. He didn't kill him, but he won that fight. But the point is, if he'd gotten his ass kicked, would anyone ever say Brad May got his ass kicked? They would have said he did the right thing.
Yeah.
It's not about whether you win or lose that fight. It's about making a statement.
So, did he ever tell you about his wife and that fight? Bridget?
No.
Mayday told me the story that, so that game was on a Sunday, that game against Minnesota, where, to your point, like, Mayday was taking that fight, and he said, like, look, I knew I had to take the fight. I didn't want to do it. Derek Bugard's toughest guy in the NHL. I had a lot of sleepless nights that week. And he said, I would get up in the morning, I would go in the kitchen, and his wife, who, as you know, Bridget is hilarious. She'd be playing that, and lovely and so funny. She'd be playing Sunday Bloody Sunday in the kitchen just to torment Brad leading into that game. Brad's like, do you have to play that song again? She's like, Sunday and Bugard Mayday, Sunday and Bugard Mayday, just to torture Brad a little bit leading into that Sunday matchup with the Minnesota Wild. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the Columbus Blue Jackets. So the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are, it's a team that I think everybody's cheering for. I think everybody wants to see Columbus do well after the tragedy with the Gaudreau brothers to start the season. And they're missing some players. Marchenko's out, Monahan's out, Werenski was out, and he's back, but they find themselves kind of, in and out, kind of bunny hopping here with a wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. And Don Waddell's on radio saying, we're going to be buyers at trade deadline. You've talked about rewarding a team for their effort. Is this Don Waddell rewarding his team for being this deep into the season and still being in it? Because many would look at this and say, this team's still rebuilding. What are you doing? Is this a reward from Don Waddell?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's so smart. Donnie Waddell is so smart. It's the right thing to do. It's the right message. Now, is it a rebuild or add at any cost? No.
Yeah.
Donnie Waddell is a realist. He's smart. He wants to reward his team. He's not going to pay stupid prices to do it because the reward, what can you do with this team? Columbus. It's a great story. We all love him. We're all cheering for him. Mm-hmm. John Davidson, Donnie Waddell, new coach. Everyone loves these guys, right? They're responding with a great year so far, but they're still barely in. They're going to get in by the skin of their teeth if they get in at all. They're probably going to lose in the first or second round. So you can't reward them too much and pay high prices and second round picks and first round picks and good young players just for a chance to maybe win one round. So you'll see some caution, some measurement here on Donnie's part, but they're going to add if they can. And I loved it. Donnie Waddell, I love him.
Real quick, you've told the story before, and I always like it. The philosophy of, if you don't, I'm talking about trade deadline here, if you don't get the price that you want for a player on an expiring contract, there's a lot of people that say you still need to get whatever you can for that player. And your point has always been, no, you shouldn't. This is your reputation that's on the line here. It's not just moving that player. Can you expand on that to close us out this week?
Well, Mike Camilleri was available at the deadline in Calgary. Yeah. My last deadline where I acted as GM before I brought Tree on. And we got offered a third-round pick for Mike Camilleri. I said no. And people are like telling me, you got to take whatever you can get. I'm like, no, he's worth more than a third-round pick. I'd rather not sign him, and we'll bring him back and see what we can do the rest of the year. Take a chance at re-signing him. He didn't re-sign. He left. But that next year, Tree was able to make a real good deal for Curtis Glencross because we had hung tough and not taken a bad deal. So I think there's a lot to be said for not making a bad deal. Don't take what you get. We set all our prices internally before the trade deadline. We would have a meeting and say, okay, what will we take for this player. We'd set the price internally. We never get outbid or never get suckered. We've still made mistakes, obviously, but we set the prices internally before the trade deadline began.
I love it. Burkie, it's the best way to end the week. Thanks as always, pal. We'll talk to you in 7 days. What are you doing this weekend, by the way?
Super Bowl.
And who do you have?
Well, I would like the Eagles to win just because I don't like dynasties, but I can't see them winning. I can't see the Eagles beating this team. Yeah. It's just too good. So I'm picking the Chiefs.
What's your go-to at the buffet table for Super Bowl?
Oh, they have food? Or in New Orleans, probably red rice and beans. Rice and beans, probably.
Yeah, I love it. That. You're the best, pal. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll talk in 7 days.
Thanks, Jeff. See ya.
It's Brian Burke. Love our time. They have food. It's awesome. Chat lively on that one too. Some interesting points there from Brian, and he's talked about that before. The idea of, because I know a lot of people think like, if you have an expiring contract, you got to get rid of that player. You have to get something at all costs. Doesn't matter. Grab a third or a fourth. Brian Burke, other managers have made this point too. That if you have the reputation for doing that, just at the end, just taking whatever you can grab, then you'll get taken advantage of. Not that managers are, pirates anymore or sharks anymore, like they used to be. But if you have that reputation of like, okay, end of trade deadline, it's 2:55. We got 5 minutes left here. We'll just like trade off whatever we have and take whatever we can get. Then you'll get taken advantage of. Burkie's always gone out of his way to make that point, and it is a salient one. Zach Phillips, anything stand out to you from another edition of Ask Burkie or Hey Burkie or Fridays with Burkie?
They have food.
They have food.
That was what a way to end that.
Where does food come from?
I thought it was an interesting conversation that he had about Hartman and the suspension there. John Benkert also pointed out in the chat just a funny little wrinkle in what he said. I don't know if you picked up on it in while it happened. He said, and John said in the chat, love how he said publicly after that statement.
Oh yeah.
I called him out publicly.
I never call him dummies publicly.
He's had issues.
Privately.
Publicly. Yes, privately, different.
I'll text Barrow so you can eat space cake on this suspension.
Yeah. I thought I like, jokes aside, I thought it was an interesting conversation where he said like he thinks it should have been 8. I disagree with him. I get what he's saying though, where he's like, you're just getting annoyed with this guy. I do still believe like the 10 was the right call, but I just thought it was interesting to hear his perspective on why he didn't think 10 was the right side of things. It would have gone with the 8. I mean, we're not talking about 10-5 here, so it's not like people can go and, lose their minds about this one after. It's not like it's like he's way off on it, but just kind of interesting to hear his perspective on why 8 was the right number for him, and the fact that he said publicly. Calls Patrick after and says, "You idiot."
Yeah, you don't. At the end of it, he's still a lawyer. I've never publicly criticized, Your Honor.
Okay.
Still to this
I'm
day.
like, okay, well, that's funny.
All right, games tonight. We got 5 of them, Zach. By the way, what did you make of your Leafs last night against Seattle? And Seattle's in a tough spot, man. We're losers of 5 of their last 6, and nowhere near even a whisper of the playoffs again this year. Meanwhile, your Leafs have won 3 games in a row, so you're a happy guy, I'm guessing. Yeah. But what did you make of last night's game? What was give me like the 25-second snapshot of yesterday's show.
Basically, good road win. I mean, you're on a long Western road trip here. You got 4 Nations coming up, and you're going to take a break. It's a good way to kind of go about
Myers
this. You
scores.
beat Edmonton and Calgary.
Myers
you get
scored
contributions
a goal.
from Myers and Bobby McMahon, who's got 3 straight. Marner gets 500 assists. Stolars comes back from 8 weeks off. He stops 26 shots on 27. 26 saves on 27 shots. Sorry, it's just a good night and a good way to continue about this road trip. You want to close it out positively on Saturday against the Canucks, but all in all, it's a good road win. It's a good way to get yourself into this break and have just kind of a good feeling, a good taste in your mouth before you say, "See ya, boys. Let's go get our tans, and we'll be back here in 2 weeks."
When's the last time Myers scored? Did you have that one last night? It's been years, man. It's been years since he scored a goal in the NHL. Oh, here we go. And that's where we see the top of Zach's head as he tries to find this one.
Yeah.
I want to say it's like 19. It's like 19. It's like 21 that he scored, right? It wasn't 2019. It would have been 21 probably. I'm guessing. I'm throwing darts, Zach.
We're loading. He scored in 22-23 with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
All right, it's still a sizable chunk of time, but
22-23. He played 11 games. He had a goal, 2 assists that year with the Lightning.
And then he promptly took a minor penalty after that.
yeah.
I think like the next shift.
2 of them. yeah.
All right, 5 games tonight. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. 5 games on the go around the NHL this evening. Roster updates, as always, from Daily Faceoff Fantasy. That is a great Twitter/X feed. 5 games brought to you by FanDuel. Pittsburgh Penguins at MSG facing off against the New York Rangers. No Crosby. Mike Sullivan saying we're taking this one day at a time. Emil Bemstrom, by the way, called up. You know what Bemstrom does really well? Like really, really well?
What's that?
He hammers one-timers. Have you ever seen Bemstrom hit one-timers? It is frightening. Now, he doesn't do it at the NHL level with as much consistency as any team would want, but in the American League, he rips it up. Like, he was a top 10 scorer this year so far with Wilkes-Barre. But watching Bemstrom rip one-timers, it's frightening. Alex Nedeljkovic starts here. Igor Shesterkin starting for the New York Rangers. You want to do your favorite Johnny Lazarus impression here as I ask this question. Are the Rangers back? Is that good?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Is that good? Rangers back?
I thought you were going to say, I got one more question.
He does that better than even I thought I was bad with it. Okay, one more question. I thought I was bad with that. No.
Like, I love it. It's awesome, but it's kills me every time. I got one more question. And I'm like, shocker, Laz.
Nobody believes you, Laz. No one. You're trying to convince us or yourself. Like no one's picking up what you're putting down. Nashville and Chicago at the United Center. Somebody has to win, right? Somebody's got to win. One of these two teams is going to win a game, right?
Yeah. Chicago's kind of got a little pep in their step after getting called out. I feel like they're might come out here ready to go tonight. You know,
line brawl off the opening draw. Connor Bedard.
Yeah, right. Bedard.
I'm calling it now. Bedard McCarron. Calling it right now.
Turns and looks at the camera.
What's FanDuel got on that?
Like he's
what's FanDuel got on that? Check to see if what's FanDuel got on McCarron fighting Bedard.
You have generational wealth if you bet on that one.
Someone's got to win this game, but it is. I think you're right. Like after getting called out nationally, you would imagine, and a lot of thought pieces written all about it. A lot of oxygen being used up at Sports Talk Radio about it, not just in Chicago but elsewhere. On this program, for example, I can expect.
Can I just say something quickly too on that, Jeff?
Yeah, shoot.
I thought, because you talked about it yesterday, but I thought everyone was right yesterday in the conversation. And I think it was one of those moments that happens where someone calls somebody out and he was fair to do so. And I think Lundqvist's response was also fair. And I listened to Maroon on the morning show and I thought that was fair as well. Like, I don't think anybody was in the wrong on this one. Biz is right. If you watch his play, he's right. But Hank is also right when you put it into context. Like, I'm watching people yesterday online, which I almost dipped my toe into and kind of had the, well, don't do that one moment because it was like, you're going to go down a rabbit hole you don't need, was people are getting mad at Biz. Look at your career versus his career. It's like,
I hate that.
Pump
That's
the brakes
stupid.
here.
That's stupid.
You know, like everyone just relax. Biz was right. Lundqvist was right. You know, he's in a situation that has this percolate and allows this to happen. That can be true. Biz can also be right. Like, I just thought one of those moments where it was like, you know, I hate to be like ring around the rosy, everyone hold hands moments, but it is. We're all right. This is it is the situation at hand. I just wanted to kind of get that in there. And also to the people calling out Biz for his career versus Bedard's, give it a rest. Because you know what? I'm in the same position as well. how many NHL games did you play? Like, stop comparing business career to Bedard's. Like, give it a break. The guy is just as qualified as anybody. He's been an unbelievable ambassador for the game. Like, relax. Everybody just relax. We're having fun. It's a game.
You don't have to be a Hall of Famer to be an analyst on television.
No. It's okay. We're good. Breathe.
Everybody calm down. Everybody calm down.
Breathe.
We're
good.
We're going to do the chanting again here on the show. We can do the Om.
Yeah.
Again, we're going back to that, Zach. Calm everybody down before the weekend.
Yeah.
Colorado, Edmonton's 2 Skinner starts there. How about Martin Necas? 8 points in 7 games for Colorado. Like, hand to glove.
Did the Avs win?
Do the Avs win this one?
No, did the Avs win? I was saying about the trade. That's joking.
They've won the 8 games in. They've won the trade. Got to declare it right now. Dallas and LA at crypto.com. Dave Burdick gets the start there. By the way, you mentioned Pat Maroon. Could you see? I'll leave you with this one on the way out. Could you see Pat Maroon on the Dallas Stars?
Yeah, unfortunately,
Dallas is trying to get tougher with their bottom 6. Rings in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Expiring contract.
I could see that being a fit there. Veteran leader, you got a bunch of the young guys around.
All in year for Dallas.
Yeah.
If you want to get tougher, Stanley Cups.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just putting it.
It makes sense.
If it happens, remember you heard it here. And if it doesn't happen, forget we had this conversation.
Correct. And if this happens, this clip is going everywhere. And if not, this episode from today is deleted from the internet.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I won't be that guy. Listen, have a great weekend. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Sakaris and Price, do not forget Mike Gillis, former general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, and on Leafs Morning Take this morning, Peter Mansbridge, a hockey fan, podcaster. I encourage you all to listen to The Bridge. It's Friday, so it's Good Talk with Rob Russo and Chantal Bear. Smoke Mirrors and the Truth with Bruce Anderson on Wednesday. Can you tell I'm a big fan of this podcast? I listen every day. Thanks to Brian Burke for stopping by every Friday. It's Burkie Day. The programming. Oh, I do want to mention one thing as well before we hit the weekend. Daily Faceoff Live, hitting the road and going live on location from 4 nations, bringing you exclusive coverage straight from the tournament, February 10th to 20th. Live shows every weekday, breaking down the biggest stories, key matchups, all the action as it unfolds. Don't miss a second. Don't forget, subscribe to Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. That's right here. If you're watching, hit the subscribe. Also hit the like. Jeffy and Zach could kind of appreciate that. Follow on all social platforms. Stay locked in. They'll bring you insider analysis, on-the-ground coverage, maybe even a little chaos. Oh, that Tyler Yaremchuk. Because let's be real, it's international hockey. Daily Faceoff Live on location from 4 nations, February 10th to 20th. Okay, that's your assignment. Tune in the 10th to the 20th, Daily Faceoff Live. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, Morning Cup of Hockey, Daily Faceoff Live at noon, 3 o'clock Eastern. This little act with you in the chats, or you on Spotify, or you on Apple Pods, or you on YouTube. I thank you for all of your attention. Much appreciated. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk again on Monday. Dismissed. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.